Starting with Saturday, Bills, Texans. Texans opened up at -3. It was -3 across the board. Now it's strictly 2.5, although there still is a 3 at Bovada at +105. This total has shot up. Opened at 41.5. Now at 44. Shot up 2.5 points. And we've talked all year about Josh Allen's accuracy. He made strides this year. There's no getting around it. 3,089 yards, 20 touchdowns. Then the Bills have the league's second best scoring defense, third best unit in terms of yards allowed. But the big story is J.J. Watt putting on his superhero outfit and coming back to save the day. J.J. Watt returns. Deshaun Watson, 67% of his passes, 3,852 yards, 26 touchdowns. DeAndre Hopkins looked great all season long. Will Fuller is heading in the right direction to play. According to Bill O'Brien, we expect him to play. It's the Texans' defense that's the problem in this matchup, if there is one. Texans defense gave up 388.3 yards per game in the regular season. Will they have answers for Brown, Beasley, Singletary, Gore? Maybe with Watt in the lineup. Let's get it started. Donnie right side. First game on Saturday. Bills, Texans.
Yeah, it's nice. We get some time to bat around all 4 of these games as opposed to, spend like a minute or two and then quickly move on. It's kind of fun to see the dissection of this game because when you look at the Buffalo Bills, you sort of have that adage like, well, their offense really can't carry him. The defense is really good. We'll see what happens. And Josh Allen, he will miss 4 to 5 wide open guys streaking down the field. But every once in a while, he's going to hit those to keep the games interesting. And then you flip it over to Bill O'Brien, which is always one of those coaches I certainly don't want to put my money behind, especially when they are favored. But then again, we're in the playoffs. We're at the home team. Houston has done fairly well in this home spot, specifically usually sitting there at 4:30 p.m. on a Saturday, rightfully so. But this is a good game. And the reason I actually like this game a lot more than a couple other ones, both of these teams had de facto bye weeks last week. They're coming in completely healthy, and you're right, Jimmy. You see J.J. Watt coming back. He's not going to be that much of a force that you usually see him in, but they're going to pick and choose their spots. They'll let him rush the passer, but he's not going to be lining up in the defensive tackle position on first down, taking on double-team blocks, trying to stretch out that pectoral muscle. That's not going to happen, but it's nice to get that added boost. And yes, if anybody follows me on Twitter, no doubt in my mind you will get an unbelievable Instagram post somewhere around Friday at midnight where he's already at the stadium and dressing in his uniform, getting ready for the game. You also see him run through the tunnel with a GoPro and an American flag in one hand. And then after the game, if they lose, you'll get that bone-crushing lost Instagram tweet from J.J. Watt saying he apologized to the city of Houston, and he's already in the weight room starting ready for the next season. But getting back to the football game overall as is, I like it, and I'll start it off here by saying I think the Buffalo Bills are really live in this football game, but I don't know if they have enough to get over the hump on the road. And I would like the Buffalo Bills if they were playing outdoors in a cold environment with a lot of wind in this game. I'll start with that, Jimmy.
Well, it is a very good start. We talk about the advantage of a bookie, a local bookie, compared to what we can get at these offshore books. And the only advantage I see with a bookie, like a local bookie, is future bets. And it's a credit-based thing, so you can make enormous amounts of future bets and then put yourself in a terrible hole, or give yourself great riches. Flash wanted me to put in some future bets for him on the Houston Texans a few weeks ago, and I did to win the AFC. I did, and I also jumped in with him. I thought if he's going to go in, I went in with him. So I do have some futures on Texans, and I think I'm just going to stay off this game. But the total of this spot interests me very much. And looking at this total shoot up, and Whale Capper has made a move on the total, and I find it very interesting, and I can't wait to hear his breakdown on it. Whale Capper, Bills, Texans.
Yes. Great way to start off the week. Usually the Texans game is kind of a stinker. It's kind of, the early Saturday wild card game is kind of an afterthought. But this is maybe one of the better matchups of the week. And it's wild, too, because I've probably spent more time on this handicap than any of the other 4 games because there are so many very important pieces who are on each injury report that I think have legitimate impact on how this game plays out, both from a side and total standpoint. I thought that the opener on the side was fair. Houston -3 is about where I handicap this game. But I don't get why this total was bet up from 41.5 to 44, especially 44 being a key number. And now you can get under at like a reasonably fair price. I got -102 on under 44 today. And I feel like this was a gift because really you're talking about two teams that don't have a ton of playoff experience. You're talking about a quarterback in Josh Allen who, as Donnie nailed it, he is going to airmail a bunch of passes to that is going to fly right over wide open guys. That is going to happen a handful of times during this game for sure. And I think this is going to be a very closely contested field position, executing special teams kind of a plays is going to be what decides this. This isn't going to be a shootout where both teams clearly get into 20 points. If we get an average performance out of Josh Allen, I'm seeing 23-20 here, Houston. But being that this is his first ever playoff start, being that a lot of pressure will be on him, and then you're integrating pieces like J.J. Watt back into the defense for the Texans. I think this does set up very well for the Texans to get the win, move on to the next round, and I think this comes in well under the total of 44. A couple of pretty important pieces that are worth mentioning here. Will Fuller has been kind of the difference maker, kind of the guy that the key piece that puts the whole puzzle together for the Texans offensively, and it looks like he will be out there. The pass defense, however, for the Buffalo Bills is out of this world good. Like, they are legitimately good. They haven't played anyone good. They're tough. Like, they've had one of the easier schedules in all of the NFL this year. But they still have outstanding singular performances by Trey White. I think he can do a very solid job one-on-one versus DeAndre Hopkins, which means you're going to have an opportunity to let the safety help over the top with Will Fuller. So even if he's out there, I don't think we're going to see home run plays from the Houston offense. I think the best way to attack the Buffalo Bills defense is to run it kind of up the middle, do a little bit of a power running scheme. I think we're going to see a lot of usage from Carlos Hyde. I think we're going to see a lot of short passes to the likes of Daniel Fells and the other kind of the tight end receiving crew. This is going to be, a grinded out game for the Texans offensively. And if they can generate some sort of a lead, put the Bills a little bit on their heels, then I can entirely see them play keep away in the second half they're great at this. They can really milk that clock. They can really make these drives. You look down, third quarter, middle of the third quarter, and next thing you know, 6 minutes are gone, and here we are sitting at 17-10 heading into the fourth quarter, and 44 is most of the way home. That's basically my angle coming into this one, and I feel pretty strongly that the under comes home.
Gerald Jones says like Houston under and Philly under. Alex Ramirez likes Texans and the under. Brandon Cummings like Houston to win in the 7 to 12 point range, which is at plus 460 at Sugar House right now. Some people think this is going to be tight. Some people think the Texans are going to pull away. And nobody's saying over, even though this total went from 41.5 up to 44. Donnie Rightside, what do you think of Wales' look on the under?
You know what? I actually sit a little bit on the opposite side of that, but not by much, because I think he brings up a lot of really good points in this football game. Because when you see playoff football, it's the same thing, Jimmy, when you equate it to hockey. You get into the playoffs. You have to take somebody's head off to get a penalty in this game. And I think that's going to be the same exact type of way. But when we look at the Houston Texans overall in defense, they are getting a little bit healthier in the secondary than what they were a couple weeks ago. And that's a positive. If we take a look, just, one thing, I like to look sometimes at Pro Football Focus where they list like the defenses. They have Houston ranked 24th overall out of the NFL in defense. If we look at some likewise competition that is going up against it, and even when you take a look at the Buffalo Bills from an offensive perspective, against the Giants, now this is being the Buffalo Bills, when you have defenses that are ranked in the 20s or lower in the NFL, they scored 28 points against the Giants, 21 versus the Bengals, 31 versus the Dolphins, 24 against the Redskins, 16 against the Browns, which was their low point, and then again 37 points in their second go-around with the Miami Dolphins. But also, when you look at the Buffalo Bills from an offensive perspective, it's hard to try to say, what can they actually be and what have they done? Because if you just look outside of the Jets game, which they played their second string, third string guys in a rainstorm, you want to remove that. But the previous 5 games, they went up against Denver, number 5th overall defense, Dallas, number 9, Baltimore 14, Pittsburgh 2, and New England 3. You're not going to get a lot of high scoring strikes. I did see Capper John in there saying they might go up tempo. I don't know how much that suits the Buffalo Bills to actually go up tempo. That's not really what they're built for. But you're going to get a game in a controlled environment. There's no windy conditions. You're going to be playing in a dome. It should be a fun game to go over. I lean a little bit more towards the Buffalo Bills scoring more against Houston's defense. And I would say, Houston is going to light up the Buffalo Bills on offense. And as Whale Capper was talking, Ian Rappaport retweeted out, Will Fuller's been downgraded and to be a long shot to play. So if you're looking from a total perspective, that's the guy that stretches the field. Now, all of a sudden, if you're the Buffalo Bills secondary, you say, Tre'Davious White, get on Nuke Hopkins, see if you can battle it out to somewhat of a stalemate. And, Kenny's still banged up, but you don't have that. I always like to call it the three-wheel motion at wide receiver where they can hit you from all angles. That downgrade there is going to be significant. The Buffalo Bills are going to scheme and get some pass rushing ability and get some, obviously, pass rush against Deshaun Watson here. So this is going to be a fun game to look at. I think you might get a little bit more points, but if you're looking from a total perspective, I think the Buffalo Bills might be doing a little bit more scoring here.
Well, that's what Jeff Billings is saying in the chat. He likes the under, but he likes the Bills team total over. RB Fern says wildcard weekend. Give me the team with a better defense and coaching. So RB Fern backing these Bills. Gerald Jones says only can take Watson at home at 2.5. Very, very interesting spot here. Jojo Rich says it's a pass for me. And at this point, for me, I've not made a move on Bills Texans, but I do have a little bit of equity on the Texans in the AFC. That is the Bills Texans. Whale Capper, if you had a free play to make on a side here at 2.5, it sounds like you would be leaning towards the Texans. Is that true?
Yeah, and mostly just on the basis of we haven't seen Josh Allen do it in the playoffs, and it's always tough to expect that you get your best ever performance the first time you're on this big of a stage, especially when you're on the road. Although the absence of Fuller makes me feel a lot less confident in the Texans getting a 3-point win or better.
Yeah. And if Fuller's going to be announced out, maybe that goes down to 2 even.